A very good evening. You're watching another edition of Face to Face here on TV1. Tonight our topic of discussion is system change or the same old system. To speak about this and much more, we've invited to our studios two strong personalities. That is Rehan Jayawickreme representing the Samagi Janabalawegaya and also attorney Shiral Lakthilaka representing the United Republic Front. A very good evening, gentlemen, and welcome on the show.
Good evening.
When we speak of system change, it's a word that we've been hearing over and over again, especially during the time of the Aragale. And governments have come in, governments have gone. They have promised of system changes, they've promised of various reforms, but the question really is, have these promises been delivered to the people? In terms of system change, where do you see Sri Lanka is at the moment, Rehan, from where we took off from the Aragale, from where things, unfolded from the Aragale? From then to now, have we seen any system change happen? Even though that was the prime objective of the Aragale, have we achieved it?
I think one thing that the Aragale wanted a fresh, new set of faces. That's why people got on the streets. They rejected the people who were in parliament at the time. But obviously that's not what happened. Now I hear people say that fuel queues have been taken off and there is no electricity power cuts and there's abundance of fuel. But that's also because we always expect the bare minimum from politicians. I think we shouldn't be thanking politicians for doing the bare minimum because that's what they're elected to do. You don't see that in other countries. You don't see people thanking rulers or whoever they have in power. They vote them in to obviously do the job. Now, while doing that job, the 6.9 million people that voted for Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the former president, that mandate is the mandate that's still in existence because parliament was not dissolved. President Ranil Wickremesinghe took over the government from him and he's running the government with the exact same people that landed the country in a mess in the first place. I don't think you can technically blame only President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. You also have to blame the team that ran with him. Now, is that what people wanted? I don't think so. And also when it comes to privatization of state entities, one of Gotabaya Rajapaksa's main focal points or main talking points was that state-owned enterprises will not be privatized. So technically speaking, the mandate for not privatization was the 6.9 million people that voted. Now what does President Wickremesinghe, what did he have to do to make it right? He could have waited for the first tranche of the IMF to come through and he could have called for an immediate general election stating what he wanted to do for the country. Now, when you have a mandateless leader who is selected and not elected, obviously there is going to be problems. And how we saw that is when he made that big announcement on, I think the 27th or the 28th or whatever, that Sri Lanka is sort of out of bankruptcy. There was only a few selected places where UMP supporters, the very last remnants of them, where they were celebrating. We didn't see that in Waligama, we didn't see that in Hambantota, we didn't see that in Galle. There were no places where people would be celebrating. So has that announcement really benefited the people? I don't think so.
Talking about the United Republic Front, Mr. Lakthilaka, your party has not been in power yet, even though some of the representatives of your party have been in power, including partly Champika Ranawaka. But as a fresh party, you all seem to have a fresh agenda and there are fresh faces in the team and everything's fresh. But do you think that you as a party can change the same old system? Because when we speak of system change, one of the other demands of the Aragale was that they wanted all 225 MPs out. That includes the Samagi Janabalawegaya as well. But when it comes to the URF, we see that there are a lot of intellectuals involved in your party. So where does system change come into play with the United Republic Front?
First of all, I must say that the system change is the most distorted word in our political discourse, right? Nobody knows what does it means. So therefore, first of all, I think it's better to start a discourse. It's better to define it properly. Now, to us, the United Republic Party, we have given a definition. The definition is that when you talk about institutions or structures you need a process and an attitude. Now, what has happened in Sri Lanka, the process means how a person or official take decisions. So that is the process, and that particular person or personality needs a certain kind of attitude. So what has happened in Sri Lanka in last 75 years, most of our systems, in one way we can say they are archaic. In some systems, for instance, it's like establishment code, or there are so many systems where we can identify as archaic, AR systems, FR systems, etc., etc. Then there are several other systems which are not adequate to deal with the challenges. Now take for instance IRD, the Inland Revenue Department's taxation system. Then there are certain false systems, like look at the customs reward system. Likewise, there are various kinds of problems connected with systems of the governance. So our party believes that first of all you have to establish this system. Now, for instance, take public finance. Public finance is governed by the parliament. You always in your news channels also gives publicity. The COPA has said this, COP has said that, but nobody has seen or experienced that certain steps have taken against the malfunctioning of the public finance institution. So there is no legal action connected to it. Or else you look at the Auditor General. Auditor General can do only fiscal audits, but he is not empowered to do social audits. Or in general parlance, if you talk about projects, efficiency or productivity of the project. So if you look at the systems of the country, everything has become very lethargic and inefficient, and bringing or keeping the system as a first step for corruption and wastage. So therefore, we believe that system change, not as this JVP or any other leftist parties are talking, we are saying, we are believing and we are producing policies how to change these systems step by step. So that is our vision as well as mission. Without these proper systems, you can't think about reviving this economy, reviving social life of the people, reviving the democracy, protecting the human rights, everything. I mean, because Sri Lanka is a licensed state. In our reading, it based on clientelism, rent seeking. Everything in this country is based on how much you gain out of that transaction. Otherwise, there is no system. So therefore, it's very interesting topic and also vital topic. But unfortunately, Sri Lankan political society has not grasped the very idea of this particular word.
I'd like to also ask you, Mr. Lakthilaka, now since your party is a new party and you all have sort of proposed a new agenda, whereas when it comes to the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, the people are somewhat familiar with their plans right now. Most often than not, a lot of critics say that, changing governments is not going to help because whatever the government that comes in, they don't really do much to improve the quality of life of the people. What is the URF planning to do if and when you come into power in terms of improving the quality of life of the general public? Because we have issues from the estate sector to the fishermen to the farmers. Those are the things that have been looked past. We're always only concerned about the urban areas and the issues that the people in Colombo are facing, whereas the real issues are otherwise. So has the URF gone to those particular people? Have you gone to the people, been with the people, spoken to the people and understood where the real issues are?
In last several years, we have produced several policy documents in order to deal with the socio-economic problems of the small or ordinary people. And the people's empowerment is based on economic, social and cultural issues. So We have identified most of these, and those are properly codified. So if you look at the policy statements of our party, or else we recently produced a document which appeal for all parties to come together to implement that. Because if you look at the present crisis has two facets. One is the economic facet. Second is the governance facet, right? So economic problem is actually, our economic bankruptcy has created as a result of governance crisis. So governance crisis is related to right to development. Now, as you correctly said, if you go beyond Colombo district, the right to development is not actually taken away from them. No hospitals, proper hospitals, no medication, the health services are very weak.
They're deprived of the basic necessities.
Yeah, basic needs. So therefore, we have proposed a framework how to develop or incrementally improve the life of the people. So those are in our websites and other documents where it's open for public consumption.
I'd like to ask Rehan now, the Samaki Janabalawegaya has been in power in President Maithripala Sirisena's government. You were a part of the
United National Party.
Yes, the whole the team of bringing him into power. You all were behind it. You all were supporting force. And now, since the Samaki Janabalawegaya is not with Ranil Wickremesinghe anymore, and you all have your own stance and own plans, and then there are others who have made different alliances. We see a lot of alliances right now as well. We see that the Sri Lankan voters are now, this is at least what the NPP says when they come and sit in these seats, they say that most of the people are under the impression that they voted for SJB, they voted for the SLPP, they voted for the UNP, and now it's a chance that you have to give the NPP because they've never been in power. That's what they always come and say, we've never been in power, so you should try us out. What are your thoughts? How will the Samaki Janabalawegaya break this, mindset of the people that you all have had the chance and not made use of it?
First of all, I think the NPP, I don't even want to call them the NPP, they're actually the JVP, right? Anyone else can make a comment about these things, but the JVP is really not in a position to talk about the 76-year-old or 75-year-old curse, because they have been part and parcel of many governments. And I'm sure Mr. Lakthilaka will agree. He's been a very senior person in our party also. But I mean, in 1994, Nihal Galapati supported the candidature of Madam Chandrika Kumaratunga Bandaranaike. In 2001 or 2002, they supported CBK again. Then after that, they supported Mahinda Rajapaksa to become the candidate for the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. They subsequently took cabinet ranks within that government. Then they supported Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca in 2010 for his presidential election. Then in 2015, Maithripala Sirisena, now they say they didn't. So if they didn't, why didn't they put forward their own candidate? They didn't put forward their own candidate. They had rooms inside temple trees. They were part and parcel of lots of things that happened. So they really have no leg to stand on. So I urge the people of this country not to be fooled by this rhetoric. This rhetoric is absolute nonsense and it's absolute rubbish. Right? They have been very much part of everything that has happened. Now, when you're very much part of what happened and when everything goes wrong, you can't all of a sudden pretend that you woke up that same morning or you were born that same morning and pretend none of this happened. The people of this country know very well what happened. And they were also part. Now, if you look at why Sri Lanka's health sector doesn't improve, why doesn't it improve? Because every single time there is a positive sort of proposal to set up private medical universities to people that can afford it, they go on strike. Now, why is the university system in this mess? Is because of the extreme ragging that takes place and the unions that they have. Every single progressive thing that any government, I'm not saying it's only us that have put forward progressive ideas, there have been many governments before us that put forward progressive ideas. So they have stood against all that, right? So they are also very much responsible for the state the country is in. That being said, I'm not saying that we should take responsibility away from us, but at least we admit the fact that there have been mistakes made. But these guys, they talk as if, they were born yesterday or they were born in 2024, which is not the truth. And if you look at the NPP, it is very eerily similar to the Vietmaga. Now, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, knowing the fact that the SLPP was very unpopular, used a platform called the Vietmaga to hoodwink the people, thinking that these are the guys that are going to come and govern. Now, what happened to Vietmaga after Gotabaya Rajapaksa won? They were ceremoniously or unceremoniously kicked out. Now, that is the same exact thing that this Marxist party is doing by masquerading the NPP, which shows itself as progressive liberals, but they are not. They are not a progressive party. They are very much a communist party. So how can you leave the country in the hands of communists? Where has that worked? In China, it worked because China had a long history of communism. And they had long years to develop a sort of unique form of communism. But what has happened to countries like Cuba, countries like Venezuela, certain countries like Argentina from time to time? Where do you see communism work in this part of the world or this part of the sphere? And it's pretty shocking that people are even going to their rallies knowing full well that this is a sheep in a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Mr. Lakthilaka, on that note, I'd like to ask you now, Mr. Rehan Jayawickreme said that Gotabaya Rajapaksa introduced this Vietmaga concept, which had a lot of intellectuals involved, but once he came into power, they really had no say. But even when it comes to your party, we see that you also have a lot of intellectuals in your party. When the leader of the URF sat with me on face-to-face, he said that your party consists of people who have delivered in their particular positions, like Anura Vijaypala and so on. They have all delivered in their specific positions that they've held. So how are the people going to trust you? What if, someone can always doubt you, thinking you will do the same?
I fully subscribe what Rehan said about JVP and Vietmaga. It's another face of Vietmaga. What we are saying is that being an educated person or educated class is not a warrant or qualification to govern a country. That's a different ball game. You need people who have experience in management of government. Without that, you can't. I mean, we can show various world examples also. There may be a businessman who has shown good profits in his business, but that does not mean that he can come and run a government. Also, similarly, you may be a professor or PhD holder. That does not mean that he can be a good minister. I mean, in our history we have shown enough examples how professors have failed by holding ministerial portfolios. What is important is strategic thinking. Now, your question is that how we are going to convince the people to support us. What we are saying is it is a social contract. So when you vote for somebody, one party, traditionally, notionally we are saying the voters are using their rational choice. But in Sri Lanka, they never used rational choice. Now that's why they voted for Vietmaga people in Gampaha or other district in 100,000 or beyond that.
Yes.
So this representative democracy is a different ball game, right? Now, yes, we also partly agree with the conception of, for last 75 years, our rulers have failed in delivering goods, public good or public welfare, the development to the country. But that does not mean that a new set of people can come up and do a better job.
So you're saying that pack of cards cannot be changed fully. There has to be a mix.
Yeah, I mean, we know in Marxism also it's a dialectical process, right? Quantity becomes quality in a process. So if people think that giants can come and change this country, it won't happen in this country. But what is needed is a rational expectation. No? Now, what has happened right now to the country, people are suffering from political anxiety. Why? Their grievance is, we have never been part of this governance. Why we are suffering? Now, who brought this suffering? That is the issue. So, in such a situation, some people come and say, right, so we have the magic wand. We can change the country. That won't happen. So, this is a incremental process. So, first, you have to stop bankruptcy. Then you have to, gradually change the situation. And then in certain period of time, you have to achieve certain growth rates at lower level. And looking at 6-7% of growth rate is a dream for Sri Lanka for next 10 years. So therefore, as he said, rhetorics won't work in politics. That's why as a party we are saying, we were in all these parties, right? So we have experience about how the political rhetorics are working. So we are bringing a very pragmatic program to the country. The people can accept it or reject it. We don't care about that because we are not living on politics.
You spoke about a magic wand, how no one can just take up the country and, make things grow and achieve all these targets within a couple of years. So don't you think President Ranil Wickremesinghe is doing a good job? I mean, he took over when there was barely anything. At least that's what their party claims, that there was no fuel, there was barely anything, and now look at where we are.
Personally, I have a mixed feeling on Mr. Wickremesinghe, right?
I mean, you have to. You were part of the UNP.
No, that is history. That is history. But what he is doing right now, he has done a good job. But lacking part is that he has no empathy. He has not been able to bring certain, as you started this program, the certain kind, we are all suffering, but suffering is different from class to class.
Yes.
So you need a equality of opportunity on suffering, right? But unfortunately, Mr. Wickremesinghe has not seen or not understood how to implement the management of suffering in an equal manner. So my criticism on that issue goes against Mr. Wickremesinghe. But as a person who because brought this country beyond this bankruptcy is commendable.
What are your thoughts, Rehan? Are you on the same page? Do you think that President Ranil Wickremesinghe did justice by at least claiming that we are not bankrupt anymore?
I mean, when you look at it in a very subjective kind of way, I don't think there are lots of people who say that he has not made any progress. Even we believe that there are certain aspects where the country has progressed. But at the cost of what? That's what we have to understand. At the cost of personal liberty, at the cost of delaying a local government election, setting a precedent that could be very, very, very bad, because now, after him, anyone who takes over that position has a precedent in law to go before the Supreme Court and tell the Supreme Court that the government does not have money. Right? That's the first time in history that it happened, and it can even continue to happen. And it's very reminiscent to what President Jayawickreme did with the executive presidency. Because little would he have thought what would have happened if a person like Gotabaya Rajapaksa, for example, wielded that sort of power. So yes, he had to make some hard choices, to which I think there have been lots of people who have said, but now it's time for him to be democratic. Right? And there are many aspects where I don't see that democracy. For example, the way he tried to extend the term of the AG. Now, why would he want to do that? Knowing the fact that the AG was going on retirement, he put it to the Constitutional Council, it got rejected, he did the very same thing again. Right? Then when you see the way that he attacked the judiciary in Parliament, now that too is a very bad precedent, because you can't pick and choose when you want to side with the judiciary or when you want to oppose the judiciary, especially if you're a leader that's supposed to be setting an example to the rest of the country. Now, what he said about the Supreme Court is also quite funny, because there have been many judgments that have been made that we may not agree with, that he has not spoken about. So, while doing things that are progressive for the country, and we have to also understand that he had nothing to lose. He didn't have a political party. All right? We had a political party. The JVP had their party. Many other people that it was offered to had their own political parties going on. And it was not solely the decision of Sajith Premadasa not to take up government, but it was a collective decision of a lot of people. So, like I said, Mr. Wickremesinghe didn't have anything to lose.
So he took the chance.
He took the chance because what else was he supposed to do? His party lost the election, was reduced to rubble. He was the sole representative who also entered parliament 6 months late. Right? And no one really talks about that. The UMP didn't have a seat for 6 months. He was marking his time, which is why I say that he was selected and not elected. And the people wanted to see the Rajapakshas out of politics. But the minute that he came in, the former president came back to the country, now lives very comfortably in Stanmore Crescent, with the same security that was given to him, with the same facilities that are afforded to an ex-president. You know, the Rajapakshas are going around doing their business. The Pohottuwa may even field their own candidate. But what would have happened if he went for an election after the first tranche of the IMF? I'm not saying that he should have dissolved it then and there. But if he went for that dissolution at least after a while, the SLPP would have been wiped out. And that is the same mistake that the Yahapalana government made in 2015. Because in 2015, when they could have dissolved parliament and gone for absolute majority, they chose the 100-day program. Now, I'm not disputing that or Mr. Lakthilaka's involvement in that or any of that, right? Because I don't go into criticism politics anymore. But you can see what the reaction to that was. The reaction was that Mahinda Rajapaksa and Gotabaya Rajapaksa were back with a bang in less than 4 years.
So it's all a game.
It's all a game. And he has said that. He has said that he watches Netflix, and he has said that, look, I have personally nothing against Mr. Wickremesinghe, even though he removed me from the party. But it's now high time that all these rulers who are above a certain age should now give it to the younger ones. Take an example of France. Take an example of not France now, but France before. Look at how old Macron was when he became president. Look at how young people in foreign leaders are when they get elected now. But in Sri Lanka, where do you even see? Tell me, how many cabinet ministers do you know who are 40 or in their 30s? I can only think of 1 or 2.
Indeed.
Yeah.
We have a lot more to talk about.
Your leader is also now getting closer to 60.
Let's talk about that and much more right after this short commercial break. Stay tuned. This is Face to Face on TV1.
Come on! Yeah!
Sri Lanka's Got Talent Season 2 starting 6 July 8:30 p.m. only on Sirasa TV. Don't miss it.
We live in a world of progress, but what if progress isn't reaching everyone? Millions of Sri Lankans struggle without access to clean water, safe roads and bridges to a better life. But you have reached out. You have touched their lives. Thank you, Sri Lanka, for making Gammadda the most impactful rural development movement in our nation. Gammadda, for the people, by the people.
මෙතෙක් ඔබ නොදුටු සියසින්ම දැක බලා ගත යුතු සියල්ල අභිභවමින් අලුත් වෙන එලිමහන් ප්‍රාසංගික ප්‍රතිහාරය. Be ready. Surround.
සිම්පත හරියට ලියාපදිංචි කරගෙන තියෙන්න ඕන. සමහරවිම දන්නෙත් නැහැනේ.
මේ සිම්පතක් කොයිතරම් වැදගත්ද කියලා මේ දුරකථන පාවිච්චි කරන හැම දෙනාම දන්නේ නැහැ කියලා තමයි මම කියන්නේ.
මැයි වලින් පස්සේ ලොකු ගංවතුර තත්ත්වයක් එන්න නියමිතයි කියලා. කාලකුණ විද්‍යාඥයින් අනතුරු අංගවන පසුබිමක ඔබ කොයි විදිහටද මේ අපේ තෙත්බිම් සම්බන්ධයෙන් දකින්නේ?
කොළඹ නගරයේ තියෙන නාගරික තෙත්බිම් වලින් 21%ක් තියෙන නාගරික තෙත්බිම් වලින් වැසි ජලයෙන් 39%ක් රඳවා ගන්න බව.
විලද නගරයට කටයුතු කරන කට්ටිය දැන් යන පරිපාලන නගරයට. ඔතන දන්න හැටි අපි ගත්තොත් අරවතු කොට එහෙම නැත්නම් කිඹුලවල ප්‍රදේශයේ අපිට තියෙනවා රැයට කෑම කඩ. ඉස්සර ඒක තිබ්බේ කොහෙද? කොළඹ. නමුත් දැන් ගොඩ දෙනෙක් ඒ පැත්තට එන්න පටන් ගන්නවා. මොකද ඒගොල්ලන්ට අර පොළ පාට ගතිය, ඒ තියෙන බ්‍රීස් එක කියන්නේ එඟට දැනෙන වෙනස අනිවාර්යෙන් දැනෙනවා.
ජාතික මෙහෙවර සතියේ දිනවල උදෑසන 11ට.
Welcome back. You're watching Face to Face. We are in conversation with Rehan Jayawickreme representing the Samagi Janabalawegaya and Attorney Shiral Lakthilaka representing the United Republic Front. Before we crossed over to the commercial break, we were speaking about what sort of a system change is required and where we are as a country. Let me cross over to the United Republic Front. Now, you also spoke about how the youth needs to be involved in decision making, and that is something that Sri Lanka is lacking. Rehan mentioned before we crossed over to the commercial break, we hardly see any young cabinet ministers in parliament, and there is a lack of youth participation when it comes to decision making. So where does the URF stand when it comes to engaging and incorporating the youth when it comes to decision making?
Now, as a political party, we also we are firm policy that youth empowerment, women's empowerment.
These policies are always there in every party, Mr. Lakthilaka. Everyone has a youth wing. Everyone will come and say, we're empowering women, we're doing this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I want to say. That's what I want to tell you. So on paper, everything is there. We are committed. But if you look at the practical aspect of that, the most important thing in a political party, I now spend, I think, 20-25 years of my life in United National Party and few years in the SJB. There is no opportunity, right? The empowerment, the space. If you look at now you said there are no ministers at the age of 30. Now, if you look at the Gavanisa, he became minister at the age of 30. But you never felt that he's a young person. He considered, he was estimated as a matured political leader. What is lacked in Sri Lankan politics is that the youth empowerment is not happening through party systems.
Do we see that happening in your party?
We are giving that opportunity. It's like, you know, you have to train youth like an apprentice. Now, even in if you look doctors or lawyers, you have to undergo a certain period. You have to work under senior ministers, senior politicians. That is not happening in Sri Lanka. I mean, if you look at 70s, this was happening. Now happened. But after 90s, this was disconnected, right? So now, take for instance Rehan, is very astute young leader, but how he is able to convince the society is a different ballgame, right? So,
but do we see young representatives, coming forward from your party? Now, just like you gave an example about Mr. Jayawickreme representing the Samagi Janabalawegaya, then we have people like Chaturanga Besinghe from the NPP, and even the SLPP had Nipuna Ranawaka and so on. Those were very young candidates.
So within our party, if you look at our youth wing, there are very talented youth grassroots leaders, not only professionals. There are grassroots, but they never had an opportunity of contesting so far. So once they face a local government election or provincial council election, even a parliamentary election, we have to talk how we have given that opportunity, right?
But do you feel like you're promoting them enough, or are you also just putting the kings and the queens and the
no, we are promoting. We are giving the media opportunities, debating opportunities, everything possible. plus capacity building. And the most important thing in politics is to understand political philosophy. The theory and practice goes together. Now it's wrong to say that I am practical, I am a doer. No, theory and practice should go together. So therefore all parties must invest on capacity building. So we are doing that. Those results may come another 2-3 years of the time.
Yes. Corruption and inefficiency are often cited as major problems in Sri Lanka. Rehan, as a Samagi Janabala Veke, how do you plan to tackle these issues? And there is a major problem when it comes to accountability in Sri Lanka. The candidates will come and they'll say those brilliant speeches on their stages, present brilliant, agendas and all these documents. But once they are voted into power, you don't really see many of them taking accountability because the people represent you into those positions, and accountability is often forgotten. Where does the Samagi Janabala stand in terms of accountability?
First of all, one reason that Sri Lanka has gone wrong is because the Sri Lankan public, or at least a majority of them, think that it's a job of a politician to catch crooks. It is not. We are not in a place where we are playing snakes and ladders or hurrah police, right? It's up to politicians to create foolproof anti-corruption systems in place that will make it impossible for even the president to get involved in lawmaking. When lawmaking in the sense law interference. What you see now is that you get, for example, AKD going on stage and speaking about how they are going to get all this money back. That is all nonsensical rhetoric again. Right? Our job is to create a system. Now, how does that happen? To ensure the independence of the Bribery Commission, for example, to make it an independent body, to make the police an independent body away from the powers that the power of the Minister of Law and Order has over the police, to create a very robust court system where everything or all of it will come under a Judicial Service Commission where it will be responsible to the people and the constitution of the country. Now, I personally don't believe, and I have told this to the party many times, I personally don't believe that the constitution that we have in place at the moment with all its amendments is capable of combating this. I think the only way Sri Lanka can move forward in the future is with a brand new constitution that will be with modern times. Let me give you an example. Mr. Lakthilaka, being a lawyer, knows how long a testamentary case in this country takes. It takes years and years and years, and sometimes a complainant or someone else, the respondent, is dead. Right? How long does it take for a criminal case? Other than select cases, these should all finish in a matter of months. That's how the justice system works in the US, that's how it works in Australia, that's how it works in lots of developed countries. So unless the people of this country stop believing that politicians are the ones who should be catching crooks, what they should believe in and what they should vote in are people capable of creating legislation, but not people who go and meddle with the law the way they want to. Now, I honestly don't think the president of a country should have the right to appoint IG. I don't think the president of the country has the right to appoint an army commander. That should all happen independently away from politics. But why is it that the post of the IG is politicized? Why is it that the post of army commander is usually politicized? Why is it that the attorney general is politicized? Why is it that the chief justice from time to time, I hope I won't be held in contempt, but why is it that there have been certain instances where politicians have been blamed for tampering with the system? Right? So as long as our people, we always point the finger at the politicians, but we have to also realize that Sri Lanka has a knee-jerk reaction type of voting where they vote for people very well knowing what these people are. Most of these ministers who are corrupt, they don't get automatically elected, no. They get elected by the ballot. So as long as people don't give value to their ballot, the result is what you get now. But the moment that people start thinking smart, acting smart and voting smart, then we will see a difference.
Indeed. So you pick your poison pretty much. Before we wrap up the show, I'd like to shoot one last question to Mr. Lakthilaka. Now, we see that there is an election that will come up soon, and your party will be contesting for the first time, I believe, if you do contest as the URF, or you may go into an alliance like your leader, Partli Sampikaranavika, very greatly said. I'd like to ask you now, the voters are pretty skeptical about whether these political parties will represent their needs, or whether we can actually achieve a political change or a system change by, changing this card pack. What is your message to the voters out there?
Now, most of the opinion polls shows that still, up to this point, around 30% of the voters are undecided. So, our message is for those 30%. So, we are going to give proper system, proper leadership, and proper transformation to this country, and in certain period of time, starting from July 17th, we may be able to give a very positive message to the people who have not yet decided whom they should be voting.
Indeed, Rehan Jayawickreme representing the Samagi Jana Balawegaya. Do you think the voters can achieve genuine change by electing the Samagi Jana Balawegaya into power?
We have a manifesto. We will be presenting a presidential manifesto. We have already provided an economic blueprint. I would also like to take this opportunity to sort of extend a sort of olive branch to Mr. Lakthilaka and the party that he represents. Because partly Sampikaranavika, their candidate, did represent the SJB and get into politics. I think that what we need is a very strong alliance, and I hope, and I mean this is the bottom of my heart, that we can forget our differences and we can forge ahead, because even his party, the party that Mr. Lakthilaka represents, has many great people in it. I believe our party also has great people in it, a majority of them, and I think that unless we join hands, we are only going to make the NPP much stronger than what it should be. So like I said, I would like to invite him and his party to sort of get into discussion and to forget our differences and forge forward.
Indeed. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Rehan Jayawickreme representing the Samagi Jana Balawegaya and Attorney Shiral Lakthilaka representing the United Republic Front. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And that's a wrap of Face to Face for tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow with another edition. Until then, take care and good night.